today. Let's get started and talk about the moment that you decided you wanted to be a teacher. And why have you stuck with it for so long?
That's a good question, John. So the moment kind of happened around 2010. So I was fresh out of university. I had finished my education there, and I was looking for a job. And originally I had planned to go and pursue a career in the financial sector, but I got offered an opportunity where I basically ended up working in a secondary school as a teaching assistant. And during my time there, I just kind of connecting with students and trying to help them learn, I kind of figured that actually I can deliver a lot more value and really kind of help them grow and understand material better if I am working as a teacher rather than a teaching assistant, because I have more control over the structure of the session and how the curriculum is delivered to them. So that's when I actually realized that I'm quite good with working with these students and also helping them understand different concepts, breaking them down, using different kind of aids, whether that is visual or multimedia or something that is more hands-on, depending on what we're covering. So I figured that I have a lot more to give, but just being a teaching assistant was holding me back. So that's when I decided that I want to actually become a teacher and I want to pursue this career path. And what's actually kept me stuck with education for so long is the fact that I just love working with my students. And it's amazing to me that I'm able to go and every single day and I'm able to help other people grow and get the results that they want, and just because I am there. And if I'm not there, they're going to struggle. I'm sure there'll be another teacher, but what I mean is that I personally am making a contribution towards actually helping them achieve their goals and the qualifications that they need. And then obviously the students come around at the end of the year and you speak to them, you attend the graduation ceremonies and stuff, and you get lots of thank yous and hugs and all sorts of stuff. And that's what's really kind of keeps me going, just watching those guys grow and developing real connection with them and getting to know them as individuals.
Yeah, that's great. And so with that said, you really enjoy teaching. What exactly are you teaching? Who are you teaching? And what does your curriculum look like?
Okay, so I work as a maths lecturer at a vocational college, which is for 16 plus. Okay, so students have to finish their secondary education in UK, and then they can go on to the vocational courses that the college offers. So they're all going to be over 16 or over, and we do get some adults as well. And the college itself is a vocational college purely. They don't do any academic courses. So it will be courses like hairdressing or performing arts, acting and singing and musical theater, or something like horticulture or animal care, sport, things like agriculture. So it's a whole mix of courses that the college offers, but they're all vocational courses, non-academic courses. So we get a lot of students who actually want to come and pursue careers in those industries. However, if they haven't achieved their qualifications previously, or they haven't got the grades necessary to go ahead and actually develop themselves, get the apprenticeships, or get the jobs in those fields, then it's kind of my responsibility to help them and to achieve their maths qualifications. And that's what I do. I work in the maths department, and we specialize specifically in developing the maths curriculum based around the qualifications that they need. So the curriculum is kind of like a bit of a repetition of what they have done at secondary school, and it's mainly focused towards students who didn't achieve at that stage, and they need that extra support, that extra boot to actually get to that level.
Yeah, and so you teach like a math subject. What is the specialty that you teach? Is it algebra, geometry? It just depends on the student? Like, what does that look like?
So okay, so it's broken down into two broad kind of qualifications. So one is called functional skills, and that's basically math that you need in workplace, and it's not going to have algebra or geometry or Pythagoras' theorem or trigonometry or none of the fancy stuff. But it's just simple fraction, decimal, percentages, average, stats, that kind of thing that you need at a workplace. You then have the more kind of academic route, you can call it, which is called the GCSE qualification, which has algebra, geometry, and all the extra stuff added onto it. But we don't specialize in one subject area. We deliver the whole, qualification and the curriculum, which has all those elements. So it has a whole unit on algebra, it has a whole unit on numbers, it has a whole unit on geometry, and we actually follow through, deliver those units, and then they have exams at the end.
Awesome.
I hope that makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense. I'm just thinking of like me as a listener, like hearing the word lecturer, like probably people don't understand what that is if they're listening in the States. So just real quick, lecturer probably just means teacher, right? Yeah.
And just simplified, it's a glorious title as a teacher. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I think of lecturer and I think of like, I don't know if you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but that guy that just sits there and says Bueller. So when I think of lecturer, I think of like just sitting and listening to someone for like 3 hours. So anyways, so now we got that cleared up. That's nice. Yeah. So, education, technology is huge now. Like the world is moving faster than we can walk. So where do you think education is now, and where do you see it going for our profession? Like, do you see teachers being taken away? I mean, what do you see as far as education goes?
I think that's a very good question. And given the fact that technology is developing so rapidly and there's so many jobs that are already being replaced, then it's not too far-fetched to say that, technology will get to a point where it might be able to replace teachers, right? However, at the same time, I think in terms of where education is going as a whole, I think we need to ask different questions and definitely better questions. Because at the moment, everybody focuses on what's wrong with the current education system and let's try and fix it, which is why there's so many different reforms, and every new government comes in and they try and restructure it and change this and change that and add more bits and take bits off, etc. And it's a headache. I think there's like hundreds of thousands of hours being wasted all over the world by teachers every single year, like going through the curriculum again, rewriting the spec, rewriting the lesson plans and scheme of work and all that kind of stuff. And because it's going to get changed again, so it's really kind of pointless. And I think the focus is on the wrong questions. The focus is on the wrong elements. They're still trying to fix something, and they believe they'll be able to fix it. When I believe the case is that it's not something that can be fixed or should be fixed. You need to look at a different alternative altogether. Because you need to look at, is the current education system satisfying the needs and the wants of the 21st and the 22nd and the 23rd centuries? That's what we need to look at. Does the current education system prepare our students for the future? And how can we actually structure and develop an education system that does fulfill those requirements and prepare our students for the future? So we need to look ahead and look at what are the requirements of the 21st and the 22nd and the 23rd centuries, and then come backwards, work backwards, and try and create a system that actually fulfill those needs. We still are working with teachers sitting at the front on a desk with a whiteboard or an interactive whiteboard nowadays, and students sitting in rows. Now, you might change that structure to a horseshoe, or you might change that to like, a semicircle or whatever. Right. But the fact is they're still sitting on chairs, they're still facing the front, they're still listening to the teacher. They're still looking at demonstrations on the board, right? And the fact is, in the 21st and the 22nd and the 23rd centuries, the future, the focus is not on actually passive learning. It's about active problem solving, which is a completely different thing altogether. So before you have like textbooks, and nowadays we have online, videos recorded and all sorts of other stuff, but it's all passive learning. But the future requires our students to be active problem solvers. So they need to be actually able to like look at something, find a problem, something that actually they believe that they can fix, something that they believe that they can solve, they can work out, and then go ahead, work together, collaborate, and try and work on creating a new innovative solution to solve the problem.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Sorry, carry on.
It sounds like from what you're saying, we probably need to cultivate at an early age a foundational growth mindset, as opposed to, because what the education system is now, and you know Don Wettrick and what he talks about is schools are basically set you up to be in a fixed mindset. That's what it is. So
definitely.
I think what you're saying is I think the start needs to be developing our kids to be active problem solvers and have that growth mindset.
Yeah.
And that I think that's where it starts. And all the wonderful things that you said, I think that's the foundation. The problem is there's a lot of people in education that still feel like we need to keep it the same and just tweak things a little bit and don't understand it. Like, these kids do have fixed mindsets. They need to, they need to learn how to be active problem solvers. I was that kid with that fixed mindset of like, I'm good at basketball. I'm not very good at academics. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. It took 36 years to figure that out. But I think you brought up some good points, asking the right question. So that anything else you want to talk about that? I know I kind of interrupted you. Sorry.
No, that's cool. That's cool. And I totally agree. It is about developing a growth mindset in the first place, because the kids need to be able to believe that they can go ahead and actually, tackle any of the big problems in the world. You mentioned Don Wettrick. So the people who are listening right now, if you don't know who Don Wettrick is, please go check him out. There's lots of stuff that he's put on YouTube. And John, I believe you've interviewed him as well for your show.
Yes.
So. Yeah,
I haven't put it out yet. I've been lazy with editing, but it'll be out in the next couple weeks for sure.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, if you're listening to this, please make sure you actually check that episode out with Don Wettrick and check out some of his stuff. He actually runs a podcast called Start Ed Up, so you can go check that out. But he's got like 14, 15, 16-year-olds trading on the stock market. They're actually rewriting the pollution laws in their states. They're actually help and like collaborate with some of the most influential people in the world, right? Like Naveen Jain and Tim Ferriss and you name it. So that's exactly what the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd centuries, the future actually requires of our children, of our students. So if that is what the future requires, then we need to work backwards and really start looking at the industry leaders in this, like Don Wettrick, who's like the #1 education expert in the world, education innovation expert in the world, and what he's able to achieve and how he's able to achieve that. And there is no kind of like guidelines around it. You do have to use a bit of trial and error, and that's what he did. But it's amazing what he's been able to achieve, and that's something that we need to be inspired by as educators and start to work towards that. And you're absolutely right. In education, there's a lot of people with a fixed mindset. So if the teacher is present in the classroom with a fixed mindset, that how on earth will the students ever develop the growth mindset to actually believe in themselves and say, actually, you know what, I can actually go and tackle any problem in the world. I believe I have the ability, the talent, the focus, the determination, the skills to actually go and do that. So
right.
It's a big problem. Like, how do you help, and I use that word very carefully, how do you help the teachers and the current educators to develop a growth mindset themselves, so they're able to then go and help the students develop a growth mindset? And that's a big one. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that one. But I think you start with Carol Dweck in her book Mindset. Yeah, I would highly recommend everybody reads that, and also the book Grit with Angela Duckworth, because they overlap a little bit, but both books are phenomenal, and there's a lot of research studies mentioned there to support this argument about the growth mindset, about having grit and about, being an optimist and staying positive, etc. So yeah, guys, if you're listening, again, Jon mentioned Mindset by Carol Dweck and Grit by Angela Duckworth. Please go check them out. Awesome books, highly recommended. If you're an educator, you have no excuse. If you're a parent, you have no excuse to go and check them out. And I'm with Jon on this one. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and listeners don't know, but you and I were part of the book club that I started called Man Book Club. I might change the name so some ladies can get back in or get in. But Grit was our last book for our book for August, and it's been eye opening. It's been great. It's already part of the mindset that I already have, and it just remedied some of the things I already thought. I think so. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. So, you're a teacher, but that doesn't define you. We talked about growth mindset. Yeah. You have more goals in life. What are these goals for you when it comes to entrepreneurship, business, and what do you see yourself accomplishing in the next year or 5 or 10?
That's a very, I think, a big question to answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say I obviously believe that staying in education is great, but it's limiting because I can only make an impact on the students in my class. And again, I'm going to try and do my best, but I'm not going to be able to change everyone. So really, If you want to make an impact at a bigger scale, at a global scale, and you got to think big for this, then you need to think about what other venues, what other mediums are available to you. And one of them is obviously entrepreneurship, where you start something where which allows you to reach a wider audience, a bigger audience. And that's something that I've been focusing on, which is why I kind of started my YouTube channel as well, which is Hustle is for Life Motivation. And over there, I interview people, follow their stories, and just try and, again, dig deep into their routines, practices, psychology, how they make decisions, all that kind of stuff. Really break it down, go into the nitty-gritty to try and understand, how they achieve success, how all these people achieve success. And I've done an interview with Jon, guys. It's on there. You got to go check that out. It's on the channel. I've interviewed Jon previously. So, you guys can go and check that out. Some real value there. Jon came on and he added some real value to everybody there. So please go check that out. But that's something that I wanted to do. I'm also trying to set something else up as a business as well, which allows me to actually reach a wider audience and make an impact there. But the focus will be to help people realize that they are capable of so much more than what they believe they are, because they have a paradigm running in their mind, and they have a certain type of self-talk that they go through. So the goal is to try and really break that paradigm, and especially with young people, students in their, whether they're secondary school or college or university, because they're going to be the leaders of the future. They're the ones who are going to actually, determine what the future really looks like. So it's really important that we start to instill the growth mindset in them. It's really important that we really try and reach out to them and help them and support them in any way we can. And that's my main goal with any kind of venture or business that, I want to start up. And, there's stuff in the pipeline. Hopefully in the next year or so, I'll have at least, one thing up and running. In terms of the next 5 to 10 year goals, I think my main focus right now is to just get it up and running and launch it and make sure that it gains traction. And then over the medium run of 5 years and 10 years, then the focus really is to grow it and make sure that I am able to reach out to as many people as possible. A lot of the skills that I have picked up, by, going through self-development and listening to podcasts and reading books and attending lectures and going to conferences and, things like that, I can really put them into play, and just try and, reach out to the industry experts and the influencers in the world. And also, not just in a sense that they're helping me launch this thing, but also the fact that I'm able to deliver so much value to them, having my unique set of skills and experiences. So that's that's going to be the overall focus for me for the next year in the very short run. And then in 5 to 10 years time, then it's just all about growth and momentum and acceleration.
Yeah, it's all about progress, and you know, you talked about fixed mindset. You know, we're talking about this a lot, but you know, our brains want us to be lazy and suffer as little as possible, and it's easy it's easy as a teacher to be a teacher and go home, you know, take care of your kids, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But I really feel like deep down, like, and I could be wrong, but deep down, people aren't satisfied with that. They need more. And Tony Robbins always says progress equals happiness. And if you're not progressing, then you're digressing. So, or regressing, I think is the right word. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point of basically you're in it to progress yourself, to grow. And you started the YouTube channel to do that. You started the YouTube channel to put yourself out there and learn from other people, kind of like how I did. And you know, I'm learning from people like you. I met you through this channel. You know, I didn't meet you through any other means. And if I didn't start it, you know, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. So, and if you didn't start the YouTube channel, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. I just think it's cool, like when you put yourself out there and you know, have the only goal in mind of just, you know, trying to bring value to others. I think it's just a cool thing to see. So. Kind of going away from that, what do you consider yourself an expert in?
A good question. I think one of the things that I find myself to be very comfortable with, and something that I have found a lot of success with, is networking. That's one thing that I believe I not mastered, but you know, I have achieved a lot in a very short period of time. Have
you always been that way, or is this something that you've cultivated over since you started the YouTube channel, or is it something you've always kind of had in you?
No, it's not something that I've always had in me. It was a matter of actually learning, you know, picking up bits, putting in a lot of effort, and using a lot of trial and error to see what works, what doesn't work, and you know, how much can you push this, and you know, how much can you bend this, and all that kind of stuff. And really coming to the point where, you know, in 6 months time, so from the start of this year, January 2017 till June 2017, which is about 6 months, I was able to like really reach out and connect with like some really heavy hitters and high achievers of the world, including Don Wettrick. So I've interviewed Don Wettrick as well on my YouTube channel. That happened like in April sometime, I believe. So that was my 4th month in.
It was a great interview too. I learned a lot from him during that conversation.
Thank you. So, you know, again, guys, if you're listening to this, you can go and check that out as well, which is already live on the YouTube channel. And I then started reaching out to other people like yourself, like, you know, Nick Maytash, who you've already, again, interviewed on the podcast. Awesome guy. Like people like Howard Behar, who is the former president of Starbucks International. And literally grew Starbucks from 28 stores in North America to 15,000 stores internationally. People like Adam Edson, who is the host of the Mentee podcast, which is one of the top-rated business podcasts on iTunes, period. And a super awesome guy. He owns a CrossFit gym himself. He's a business guy, but he also runs his podcast. He's a season 2 host. And I had him on the YouTube channel. So what I saw was that I was actually getting results in a really short period of time. I went from nobody really knows who I am and I'm just a maths teacher, to the fact that I have a YouTube channel and I'm connected with some of the, you know, heavy hitters of the world and the top influencers of the world. But it took a lot of effort, a lot of grinding behind the scenes. So as you know, like setting up one interview for like your podcast, which by the way is a, you know, awesome podcast, and I'm really glad that you started it, and I'm sure you have had an absolute blast and learned a lot from this, just the way I did on my YouTube channel. Yeah.
Thank you. I have.
yes, I believe you have, because I certainly did for my YouTube channel, so I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
But the great thing is like it's you know, the commitment, everything that goes behind the scenes, nobody sees. They just see the finished end product. But all the hard hours of actually, you know, getting in touch with everybody and trying to get them to be on the channel, making sure everything works, and making sure that you have, you know, the interview questions sorted. And sometimes they have to cancel, and sometimes you have 2-3 people lined up as backup, and they all cancel. And then what you do? You still have to, you know, go. So there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, which people don't really see if they just see the finished product. So it was all of that with the YouTube channel, plus the networking side of things, where I was applying a lot of this to really, understand how all of this works. But now I've kind of got to a point where I'm putting together an online course, and also hopefully a mastermind, which people can join. This is basically teaching you all the networking strategies that I used to, go from basically 0 to 100 in like 6 months, which is pretty insane results if you think about it. Going from, being just a maths teacher at a local kind of college to actually connecting with, top podcast hosts and, the former president of Starbucks International and Don Wettrick, who's the #1 education innovation expert in the world, all those guys. So that's something that I believe is, I can kind of confidently say is something that I'm an expert in.
Yeah, and it reminded me of being a teacher. I mean, all the hours that you have to put in, all the cancellations. I mean, all the behind the scenes stuff that most people don't see teachers doing.
Yeah.
Whether it be grading papers, getting lessons prepared over the weekend.
Yeah.
Creating different things so you have engagement in your classroom.
Absolutely.
They don't see that. They just see the finished product. They see the students, or the students see you with that finished product.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely comparable to teaching.
Definitely.
I would love you to give some, I know that you were on the Menti podcast with Adam Edson, and you gave some really powerful stuff when it comes to networking. Networking isn't just asking for things or, contacting some. It's not me just contacting someone, hey, you want to be on the podcast. It's more than that. And I'd love for you to, kind of give your, what if you were teaching a class on networking, give me the 3 things that you would give your students to get started.
Okay. Awesome question. So the 3 things that I would say are absolute like musts for networking. Okay. Number 1 is you have to be more interested than trying to be interesting. Rather than trying to impress the other person, you have to be interested in what they are doing. What are their goals? Where do they actually see themselves going? What is it that they're focusing on? So that's the number 1 thing. You have to really be interested in them from a genuine place, not just like in a sleazy way, but genuinely be authentically interested in that person. That's the number 1 thing.
And that goes along. Sorry. And that goes along with relationships, just anyone you meet in general, your colleagues, friends, that's how you build relationships. That's a great strategy right there.
Thank you. And this is actually super important for actually developing a connection with your students as well. If you want to develop a genuine connection with your students, you have to be interested in them, genuinely be interested in what's happening in their lives. Because otherwise, you're just somebody else who's there to actually tell them off when they speak or chew gum or, listen to music in class and stuff, and you're trying to force them to do something that they don't want to do and they don't really want to be there. They're not really going to respect you or listen to you. So this is a really great strategy actually to really build a solid relationship with your students. Be actually genuinely interested in what's happening in their lives. The second thing I would say is always come from a place of value. Okay, you're not there to get anything. All right, the number 1 thing, if you want something out of that person, and you go in there with the mindset that I'm going to walk out of here, with whatever I want, no, you're not going to get anywhere, especially with the high-end achievers of the world, the industry experts, okay? Because you know what? They get pitched like thousands of times a day, emails, text messages, face-to-face, Skype calls, people hassling them at the office, phone messages, voice, you name it. They're getting bombarded from all directions. So the only way that you can stand out if you want to connect with a heavy achiever is that you have to come from a place of value, and you really generally have to try and work out a way to add value to them. Okay? It's not going to be easy. No way. Because I know connecting with, all those heavy hitters was not easy for me, because I was a nobody. Nobody knew me, and I had nothing to really offer them if you think about it. And that's what the kind of mindset you develop if you suddenly start thinking about, oh, I want to connect with, say, Don Wettrick. And you think that, well, what have I got to give Don Wettrick? You know, he's the number one education innovation expert in the world, right? So what have I got to give him? But if you genuinely connect with him, if you, you know, genuinely try to find out, you know, what he's working on, and just be like curious, hey man, how can I help you? What is it that you're working on? And what's your main focus? What projects are you leading right now? Just try and work that out. Okay, just ask those questions instead of saying, hey, this is what I want. When can we meet? When can we actually do this? Can I get you on a call? Can I have your email? Can I have your phone number? Like, he gets pissed all the time. But if you're generally just reaching out and saying, hey, what can I help you with? That's a great strategy. Okay. And the third thing is, I would say, when you are networking, you need to leverage social media. Social media is your friend. Most people just go on Facebook to actually, you know, flick through their newsfeed. They have a LinkedIn account which they don't really use, and it's just, you know, sitting there, getting old, getting dust, and you know, you don't really update it. You don't really care about it. It's just out there, and you know, it's just something you have, and you're satisfied with it. But these things you need to actively be involved with. You need to leverage social media to your advantage, and the way to do that is to actually, you know, reach out to people on social media. So for example, I'll share a really quick strategy with you, which was, you know, I used myself, worked wonders for me. And it was really simple. I was going to this event, conference in London. And this was the first one that I was ever going to attend in my life. Like the first one I ever been to. I've never been to a conference before. And what I did, I just found out who the speakers are, the main speakers at the conference. And I reached out to them on LinkedIn. So I sent them a request and just waited for them to actually reply or accept. So whoever accepted, I then sent a message immediately back saying, hey, you know, thank you so much for accepting my request. This is who I am. I'm hoping to attend the event. This is what I hope to gain from the event. I know that this is going to be a super stressful time for you right now because you're preparing for this event. You've got everything else going on as well. What is it that you're struggling with and how can I help you right now? Okay. And not everybody replied, but quite a few of the speakers replied, and they were like, they're industry experts, and they replied, and I actually ended up connecting with them. When I actually went there at the conference, everybody else was like there saying, oh hi, you know, you added so much value to me, you told me so much amazing stuff, whatever, trying to take selfies with them, can I have a picture, etc., etc. And I walked to them very confidently, shook hands and said, hi, I'm Talal, we connected over LinkedIn, you know, this is what we were talking about on LinkedIn, etc., etc. And there we go. Like straight away, it was such a different perspective. And they said, "Oh yeah, I remember you were connected on LinkedIn. How are you doing, man? Did you enjoy the conference? How's it going so far, etc. You know, who else have you met with?" And straight away, I was like, "Oh, I met with so and so." And actually, quite a few of them were happy to stay in touch with me afterwards. Quite a few of them were actually, you know, introduced me to other speakers, which I didn't get to connect beforehand. And, you know, one of them actually walked up to me and he's like, hey, have you got my new book? And I'm like, no, I haven't. He just gave me a free copy of his book. I actually interviewed him for my YouTube channel. I have a fantastic relationship. I can call him up and get free advice for him, which he charges hundreds of pounds for other people. But I can get free advice from him. So, but it's all comes from, you know, just taking action, just going for it and just see what works. Nothing's going to work the first time. Realize that. So when it doesn't work, don't just give up. Keep trying different things. But these three, I think, would be the core strategies I would tell anybody to start off with if they're interested in actually improving themselves, start to build relationships with people who are the industry experts or the leaders in their field, or just, you know, a celebrity or whoever they look up to. But remember, they get pitched thousands of times. So actually, you know, if you're sending messages to 50 people, expect at least 49 of them to not even reply. Okay? And that's the kind of ratios you sometimes work with, because it's so saturated. Like, you're just a blip on their radar, if that. Right? So you have to keep trying. So sometimes you have to send 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 messages for it to get somewhere. But that's okay, because eventually you do get somewhere, right? But it's just not every single time and not with everyone.
Yeah, and we keep referencing Don Wettrick, but you know, he has that innovation class where he has his students, you know, Skype these industry leaders. You know, they Skype Tim Ferriss and I don't remember who else.
I think
Naveen Jain.
Naveen
Jain was one.
Yeah.
But and I think that's great advice, especially for students. If you do have some autonomy in your classroom, if you're a student, take this advice and start where he talks about. Bring something of value to this person. Don't just, I have a student that said that she's interested in photography, and she's like, how can I get this going, or what college do I need to go to? I was like, you need to find someone that's doing it the way you want to do it. And she just kind of looked at me like, huh? And so it's middle school, so they don't understand this yet. But I think they can start understanding, like, networking is a huge deal. They're always talking about, that's not what you know, it's who you know, and that's. I like that, but it's not necessarily true. It is about what and who you know, but it's about building those relationships and bringing value to that relationship. And I think those are some great strategies, and kind of going along with your habits and routines. I know that you're big on building these habits to help you grow. What is one habit that you wish you could add or subtract, or both? What's something that you wish you could subtract, and what's something that you wish you could add to your consistent habits?
I think the one habit that I have been kind of going back and forth with mentally, and thinking that it would be useful and I should actually make it part of my routine, is actually journaling. And I do find that if I sit down and I kind of go into my flow state, and I'm able to do a brain dump, I'm able to come up with some great stuff, make some great connections, and develop some awesome ideas. But journaling has been difficult because you need to be really consistent with it. And I think personally found it really difficult to find time in the day when I can actually sit down in peace and quiet and go into my flow state and actually do it on a consistent basis. I do brain dumps from time to time, just sit down and just do a bunch of notes and do spider diagrams and brainstorms and all sorts of other stuff on different ideas. But journaling is something that I would definitely like to add, because I think there will be a lot of value in it and in being consistent. And I think the one habit I can subtract, that's a good one. I've been working on really trying to develop lots of positive habits and just make sure I'm being consistent with it. So I think instead of subtraction, I would just say, just sticking with them and making sure that I am being consistent with them. So my daily meditations, the books that I read, or the podcasts that I listen to, or the seminars that I attend, or the lectures that I go to, the conferences that I attend, the networking that I do, just being consistent with them. Because one of the things that I found is, like, if you break momentum, if you stop altogether, it's nearly impossible to pick it back up and get to the same level. Nearly impossible. So I think for me, instead of subtraction, it would be more consistency that I need to focus on.
Yeah, and there are days where I've built these habits, I'm sure you have, where I don't fit them in, and I just feel bad, or I feel off. And you talked about self-talk. Talk a little bit about self-talk, and what are some ways that you cultivate more positive self-talk? Because I'm definitely someone that, if I do miss a workout, or if I miss a meditation session, or journaling, or something that I know that's going to move me forward to where my future self will smile. I know my negative self-talk is difficult sometimes. So, what are some ways that you have developed that help with that self-talk to be more positive?
Yes. I would say the number one thing there is awareness. Is actually be aware of your self-talk. Because most of the time it just happens and you're not even aware what's going on. So you were in a good mood, something happened and it kind of dragged you down, and you suddenly start to feel bad and miserable and low and all those kind of, negative emotions. If you feel them on a consistent basis, you split in, kind of go downhill and slip into depression and, all sorts of other stuff. So I think the number one thing there is just to be aware of your self-talk, that I have a conversation going on in my head right now. That's the number one thing.
Right.
And then the second thing is looking at the quality of that conversation. Is that conversation empowering you, or is it disempowering you? So if the conversation's around, like, I missed a workout today and I'm a terrible person and I can never do anything right and I'm a failure and, you know, I always start things and I can never finish them and that means that this is who I am. Guess what? You just slipped into a fixed mindset because you believe that this trait defines who you are. This event defines who you are. This situation, this environment defines who you are. You straight away slip into a fixed mindset. You need to be aware and catch yourself, right? Okay, so this is a negative self-talk and this is what I do. Like, I'm going through negative self-talk right now. Like, I missed a workout today, which I did, by the way. I did miss a workout today. So yeah, I was feeling a bit bad. Like, I should be going to the gym. But then I have other priorities, like, you know, family commitments and, you know, spending time with the kids. And, you know, I'm actually, you know, just before we actually jumped on here, I went to actually view a car because I'm getting a new car. And that's priority at the moment. So my gym workout, yeah, I missed it and I feel terrible about it. But I need to make sure that I don't associate that as a fixed rate. Like, this is not who I am. This is not all of me. It's just something that happened today. And I have another, you know, day coming up tomorrow where I can go and hopefully try and fix that.
Right.
So that's the number one thing. The second thing I would say is actually make sure that you do have a lot of positive input going into your head. So make sure you're not hanging around people who are negative. Now that sounds a bit cliche, but it's important. People who actually push you, uplift you, empower you, who actually motivate you, those are the people you want to hang around with, because guess what? Your energy is going to be high. Okay? You're going to feel more positive about yourself. And like, everything boils down to feeling, how you feel about something. Right? You like chocolate because it makes you feel good, right? Okay? Even though it's bad for you, you know you're going to put on inches around your waist, but it doesn't matter because it makes you feel good. Okay?
Right.
But at the same time, you hate taking a cold shower, okay, at like when it's, you know, snowing outside because it makes you feel bad, right?
Right.
Everything boils down to feeling. So you need to actively think about your feelings, right? So if you're around people who actually uplift you, motivate you, drive you, and push you forward, then you're automatically going to be in a good state all the time. You're going to feel happy. You're going to feel good about yourself. And if you constantly feel good about yourself, you're going to not really have that negative self-talk going on, or you're going to have less of it, or you're going to have more control of it. So that's really important. You surround yourself with 5 people. There's a really awesome Jim Rohn quote which says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Totally agree with that. Okay, absolutely agree with that. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So try and spend your time with people who are, you know, ahead of you. Okay? Because if you, you know, with people who are at the same level of you, or even, you know, worse than you, and I'm not saying you have to cut them off your life because they might be your friends and family, but what I do mean is you do need that positivity coming into your life from somewhere, right? So that's really important. Surround yourself with the right people. And finally, you know, make sure that you create an environment around yourself which empowers you, right? So everything you interact with is an environment. So this is really critical. People don't realize that everything you interact with is an environment. Your clothes are an environment. Your phone is an environment. Your bedroom is an environment. Your car is an environment. Your office is an environment. Your kitchen is an environment. So you need to make sure that every single thing that you interact with, which is your environment overall, is an environment that empowers you, right? So, for example, in my bedroom, there's no TV, okay? Because I want to create an environment there that allows me to be in control. However, if I have a TV there, I know I'm not going to be in control of what I do in the bedroom because guess what? I'm going to go in the bedroom, turn the TV on, and just sit there for the next 2-3 hours watching TV. While those
Right.
2-3 hours could have been spent on anything, literally anything, right? But those 2-3 hours are wasted because I'm watching TV. So I'm controlling my environment there. In my car, I make sure I don't listen to the news. I don't listen to the radio. I have podcasts. I have lectures. I have audiobooks. I have, other stuff that I listen to that allows me to learn new things, like networking, like how to run a YouTube channel, like how to set up a business, okay? And that, again, goes back to the previous point I mentioned about feeling. It makes me feel good about myself because I'm learning new things, I'm applying those things, and I'm seeing results. My life is moving forward, I'm accelerating. So your environments are also really, really important. And again, I would repeat this, one more time. Every single thing you interact with is an environment.
That's powerful. The second thing you talked about reminded me of that impact theory interview with Vanessa Van Edwards, and the environment or the people that you associate with, and the ambivalent relationships as opposed to the toxic ones.
Yeah.
And have you seen this interview?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
Oh, it's so powerful. There's one quote in it, and it was talking about the ambivalent relationships, and she said, "Are you ever doubting if the people in your life are truly happy for you? If you're ever doubting that these people in your life are truly happy for you, then those are those ambivalent relationships. Those are the relationships that probably drain you the most. Those are the relationships that you need to stay away from. And they're usually the hard ones, because a lot of them could be friends, family, that are hard to separate yourself from. But ever since I've seen that little clip, I keep thinking about that and thinking about my environment, the people around me. Are they truly happy for me? If they're not, then I just need to distance myself from them. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that brought up something good. So let's get into the foundation of the show, which is habits, routines of leaders and teachers and education and beyond. What are some, we talked about your meditation, your exercising. Let's just talk about meditation. What is your current habit when it comes to meditation? What do you do? Do you have a whole routine when it comes to that?
Yes. What I have is a whole bunch of different stuff that I work. So it's not just one particular type of meditation, or not just one particular app or medium that I use for meditation. It's quite a few. So in the morning, I want to try and prime myself for the rest of the day, something positive. So I would listen to something empowering, like the kind of meditation which is based around kind of mantras and kind of like talking about empowering yourself in different ways, right? So I listen to that kind of meditation, which kind of sets your mind up for the rest of the day on being empowered. Then throughout the day, I'm constantly catching myself, and I'm looking at tension in my body. I'm looking at my breath. So is my breath shallow and really not very deep and really short breaths, or is my breath relaxed and deep? And I'm always observing my breath, and also tension in my body. Are my shoulders tense? Are my arms tensed? Is my forehead, is my face tense? And if I catch that, then I go back to my breath and try and release that negative energy, that tension within me. So I'm constantly trying to do that throughout the day. And sometimes you just get caught into something and you don't even think about it, and that's okay, because you're dealing with something in class, etc. But then at break time, at lunchtime, whenever I do get a chance, I try and go back and review that. And then halfway through the day, I do my prayers. And then after my prayers, I do a 10-minute guided meditation using an app called Headspace, which is just to kind of focus on, your body and focus on yourself. So you are kind of, trying to just connect with yourself, trying to come back to yourself, because the whole day you have gone and you've spent just giving, and you need to come back and recollect yourself to who you are, and just feed yourself for a bit and be with yourself for a bit. So I do the 10-minute guided meditation there. And then I carry on with the rest of the day. And towards the end of the day, you know, when I'm about to go to sleep, or, you know, just in the evening and stuff, I do I try, and this is something that sometimes I miss, because when you come home with the evening, you know, kids running around and chaos, and, you know, you're
right.
trying to avoid objects flying around, then it's a bit difficult. But, you know, what I do try to do is, you know, try and go through one more meditation session just to kind of bring myself down to earth, and ground myself, and just make sure that I'm back to myself. I've spent the whole day going through everything. I've had different experiences. I've met different people, you know, things, you know, that went on and were out of my control, and they made me feel different ways. And I just want to kind of collect myself. And one of my mentors, he gave me a meditation which is trying to connect with your inner child. So go back to when you were a child, and just spend time with yourself when you were as a child, and look at what you enjoyed, and, you know, what you liked, and having a conversation. And I know it sounds really weird maybe for people who are not into this kind of stuff, but it's about, you know, connecting to yourself when you were a child, and maybe you empower yourself in that version of yourself, so that the current version of yourself is more complete and more developed and more whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's great. So let's just get into some rapid fire questions to end. What is your favorite smartphone app at the moment?
Headspace.
Headspace, nice. I am a big believer in Headspace. I love Headspace. How about book or books that you would love to gift to someone?
Ooh, okay, so it'll have to be a list, unfortunately. Okay.
Go for it.
I'm going to go with Carol Dweck's Mindset, Angela Duckworth, Grit, Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, and The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay.
Oh, that's a great one.
Because
that was our book number 6, I think, for the Man Book Club.
Month of July,
from what I remember. Was it July?
I believe so. Yeah. So yeah, The One Thing, and finally, I'd say Awaken the Giant Within from Tony Robbins.
Oh, that's a great one as well.
Yeah.
That's a doorstop, but it takes a while to read it. But yeah, if you can get through it all, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's War and Peace, just more awesome.
How about this? I've asked this from the last couple guests I've had on. What is the secret to a happy marriage?
Ooh, that's a deep one. Very deep.
How long you been married?
7 years.
7 years. So what do you think is the secret to a happy marriage?
I think the secret that I think I have discovered through my experience is making sure that you are constantly focusing on rebuilding your relationship.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that there are a lot of times over time people change. Things happen, people change, right? But at each of those stages, if you're not renegotiating, if you're not kind of rebuilding your relationship, you just go further and further apart. Even though you're in a relationship, you're married, you're living together and everything like that, you will change. People change. Things happen. Right? And then you will say, oh, you know, she doesn't, you know, listen to me anymore, or he doesn't spend time with me anymore, or they're not into me, they don't love me, etc., etc. And I'm sure all those things are there deep down, but you haven't spent the time on the relationship itself. You have spent time together, but that doesn't mean that you have spent quality time building and rebuilding and re-strengthening your relationship. So it's really critical that you go back and review and rebuild and kind of structure and re-strengthen your relationship. So, like, for example, with my wife, we have a very kind of, for some people this might sound a bit crazy, but we have a very structured week. But that's actually, really helped us. For example, we have a night for date night. We have a night for movie night. We have a night for reading. We have a night for spirituality. We have a night for games and just chilling out. We have a night for catch up and, kind of just talking to each other openly about everything from finances to our relationship to, what we're going to do next week, all that kind of stuff. But it's those kind of things which you're not just spending time together, but you're actually trying to rebuild and renegotiate your relationship over time, because obviously you will grow and you will change as people. That's what I believe. Yeah,
and what that reminds me of, as you talked about it with the whole networking thing, be more interested than interesting. I think that's pretty big.
That sums it up. Yeah, that sums it up nicely.
Yeah. How about you do you have your phone with you right now?
Do you have a what? Sorry.
Do you have your phone with you right now? Do you have or whatever you use to listen to your podcasts?
Yes.
I'd love for you to get your phone out right now and go down the list of all the podcasts you are subscribed to.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's do that. So the podcasts that I'm subscribed to are Freedom Fastlane.
Okay.
Impact Theory.
Yeah.
Then I have MWF Motivation.
MWF? What is that?
MWF Motivation.
What does MWF stand for?
I can't remember actually.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
Something like that. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah, because he runs it 3 times a week actually.
Okay.
Yeah, he does it. So it might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're right. But it's a phenomenal motivation podcast where it's run by Rob Dial, and he breaks different things down for you in terms of habits, routines, inspiration, like all sorts of awesome stuff. So
that's great.
Listen, and short episodes, like only about 20 minutes long.
Nice.
Self-Made Man. Don Wettrick's Start Ed Up.
He's doing some great things.
Oh, he's phenomenal. I have other ones like Stuff to Blow Your Mind, Stuff You Should Know, Art of Charm, and oh my word, these two are a must, because I would not be where I am without these two. The Mentee and the One Thing podcast.
Oh yeah, those are great.
Yeah. I have School of Greatness. I have Smart Passive Income, Tim Ferriss Show, the Tony Robbins podcast, and also The Running Life.
The Running Life, nice.
Yes. It's actually hosted by Kari Gromley, who is a member of the online community that we're both a member of as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's see, the one thing I remember, I mean, this is how powerful the One Thing podcast is there was one episode, I think it was episode 67, and it had to do with how to get organized at work. And I actually sat down at my teacher desk and listened to it and took notes. I mean, it's how powerful these episodes are with the One Thing with Jeff Woods.
Definitely. I would just like to say that my networking basics, I all learned from the Mentee, if anybody's interested.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, and last thing, what is your favorite quote or quotes?
My favorite, I think it'll be more than one quote. But one of my favorites is, you will forever be at war unless you learn to make peace with your pieces. It's by Siobhan Langford, who's a men's empowerment coach, and a really, really powerful quote. It hit me, and forever since. I've actually written it down. It's actually on my desk at work. It's written on a piece of sticky note, and it's stuck there. Another one is, why play safe in a life where no one gets out alive?
That's true.
Which I think is really powerful, and we kind of forget that, and we tend to kind of overthink things, but that's a really powerful quote as well.
Nice. Who is that reference to?
That is by, I think, Warren Inspire Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah, he's also kind of like a motivational speaker who has been on stage with Tony Robbins. So,
nice.
Yeah, really powerful quote from him. And I would also say, I believe this is from Aristotle, and he said, excellence comes from something that we repeatedly do. So therefore, it's a habit and not an act.
Nice.
Yes. And finally,
what about you? What is your favorite quote, Talal? What is a quote you want to give to the audience, coming from your brain?
The quote that I would like to give to the audience is, you will never win a war unless you're willing to pay the price before you started it. Because most of the time we have lots of things we want to do, but when we think about the amount of work we have to put in or the sacrifices we'll have to make, we're always like hesitant. We don't go ahead and pursue those goals or pursue those dreams. And that's what keeps us kind of stuck where we are and unsatisfied with our lives, and we don't get to experience living. So if you really want to experience living, you need to be willing to make the sacrifices, and that's how wars are won.
That's right.
Burn those damn boats. Burn those damn boats.
All right. So where can people find you in the vast light of the interwebs?
Well, the best way to reach out to me is through email. So the email is just hustleis4life. That is all spelled, so it's not the number 4, but hustleis4life@gmail.com. People can reach out to me personally there. That's the email. They can also go and check out my YouTube channel, which is if they just go to YouTube and type in Hustle is 4. In this case, it is actually the number 4. Life motivation. Hustle is for life motivation. They can go and check that channel out. They can subscribe to the channel, which I really appreciate. It just helps me to go and reach out to more bigger names and get them on the show and actually serve the people that way. I think those are the two main ways that they can really reach out to me. There's always, things like Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, jump on Facebook and see if you can track me down there as well.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate having on. I know it went a little longer than we expected, but you definitely brought a lot of value to this conversation and hopefully a lot of value to the listeners. So thanks again, Talal.
Thank you, John, for having me. I really appreciate it. And you're doing a phenomenal job, man. So please keep it up. I totally believe in you. You've done some amazing things, again, in a very short period of time. And I'm just really, really happy to see you grow. And I'm sure you have a really bright future for yourself and this podcast. And I hope that, we kind of continue to stay in touch and I'm able to actually experience that with you and be a part of it.
Oh yeah,
I think you're just going to move forwards and upwards. So keep doing what you're doing, man. You bring a lot of value to a lot of people, especially to educators, and just kind of getting them to see what's kind of beyond the 4 walls of their classroom and break their paradigm. So I really appreciate it, and you've definitely brought a lot of value to me as well. So thank you very much. And guys, if you're listening to this, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you jumping on the show. Make sure you subscribe to the Teacher Tunnel podcast, because John is awesome, this podcast is awesome, and it's been a real honor being here, guys. Thank you. Thanks,
Talal. Well, that wraps it up. Do you want to talk about the book club goals that you have for the month?